Hello everyone. I'm Rosa Linda Román, and this is Marrying Myself. I go by Rosa Linda, and this is my show. It's part of a project that I've been working on. I call it a mixed media project that is focused on centering my own wisdom first for this next chapter in my life. I'm the mom of 3 amazing kids and the wife of an amazing husband, and as the kids start to kind of go off into their own, becoming their own adults and starting their own lives, 2 of our 3 are off at college already, I really realized I needed to start shifting to figure out what I wanted next. The first part of that, when my first daughter went off to college, was I became a full-time author, writing mystery thrillers. Well, they're actually conspiracy thrillers, although I've been calling them mystery thrillers. So writing conspiracy thrillers, which you can see there behind me. It's a 5-book set that's been rapid released in the last 15 months. So that's mostly what I've focused on. I also wrote a sailing memoir. But now that I'm kind of done, wrapped up that series, I realized I didn't know exactly what I wanted to spend my time on next. I've got another series in the works, so I'm still doing my fiction, still doing the conspiracy thrillers, but I really wanted to think about kind of soulfully what I wanted to do for this next phase of life. As I thought of that, I realized I'm really good at taking everyone else's input. I love learning things. I love taking people's courses. I love being in different programs and learning from others. But in order to really get clear on what I wanted, I needed to kind of go back and kind of recenter my own wisdom first. And that's actually harder than I thought it would be. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you're like, okay, I'm going to, like, what do I actually think here? Because I tend to defer to others. I tend to appreciate other people's input. So that is the kind of the impetus of what started this project. I realized I wanted to center my own wisdom first before all the other input from other people. That doesn't mean I don't value other people's input. It just means that I want to check in with myself first and figure out, okay, what do I actually want here? Because a lot of times I do things just because that's what I've always done. So the way that I decided I'm going to start this project is by digging into my old journals and archives. My background is I was a TV news reporter and anchor, and I have a tendency to document. I've been writing journals. You can't see them on the bookshelf over here, but I've got dozens of journals from my lifetime. And I realized they've just been sitting in a garage in a box, never looked at. So I pulled them out, and I've been little by little going through them through this project, which is called Marrying Myself. Because the idea of marrying myself is that when you are about to get married and you fall in love with someone, you want to know everything about them. You listen to what they have to say intently. You're like, oh, you hang on every word. Well, I want to hang on every word of my own that I wrote, that I've created. And I'm sharing that here. I came up with the idea that when you're getting married as a bride, you're supposed to have something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. So that is how I structure this live stream, and also the post. So basically I post a post every week. Let me show you that. That's not it. There's my post. It is every week by Friday, I post an article on Substack, and it's basically breaking down something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. So that is what I do by Friday every week. And I'm proud to announce that I actually got it done this week by Friday. That was my goal, to be done with the blog post part by Friday, before the close of business, before it began to be Shabbat, because I don't work on Friday night to Saturday night, because it's the day of rest. So I was really proud of myself because I got it done this week on time. So go back at some point. If you're seeing this now, I definitely invite you to go back and look at that blog post, because I kind of break down thoughts behind the things that made the list this week for the something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And yeah, so that was the post. I got that posted. And then every Monday, I revisit whatever it was that came up for that post and really kind of take a deeper dive into it here on this live stream. I want to mention, if you're watching this live, or maybe you're watching the replay now, and then you're going to catch next week's live, I love having people here in the studio. So if you are here live, you can put a note in the comments. You can do that on Substack. You can do that on, you can do it on YouTube. You can do it on Facebook. So I have this going live in several different places. So that's really cool. And if you are here, put a little note so that I can see that you are here with me. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into what made the cut this week. So I'm going to actually pull up the article so I remember what I'm saying, because it's that kind of morning. I actually woke up this morning and I was just like a little off, a little headache, which I don't usually get headaches at all. And yeah, just kind of a little bit wondering, how am I going to go live when my brain is very scattered this morning? But here I am, and we're going to do it. So I appreciate that you're here. Okay, let's see if it's going to let me. It did not. Let's see if I can go back to sharing the screen. Window. It doesn't want to let me. All right, well, there we go. Okay, again, sharing this. And with the something old section, I always talk about something old, and I split it up into two parts: something old and rotten, and something old and precious. Because when I started digging into the idea of, finding something old, as I'm going through my old archives and things like that, I'm running into a lot of things that are very precious. But I'm also running into things just in life. I'm reading articles, I'm doing, diving into centering my own wisdom first. I'm finding the things that don't spark joy anymore. So that's kind of the whole point of this project, to quote Marie Kondo. I don't know if you've ever heard of the life-changing magic of tidying up. That's actually how I downsized our entire house to move onto a boat, was the Marie Kondo's, she calls it the KonMari method. And the whole point of it is you narrow it down to what still sparks joy. And I'm really trying to let that lead me in this project. So as I'm digging into these old things, I'm finding the something old, the precious things. There's the something old and precious from the journals and things that I'll share here for sure. But there's also a lot of, because we're shifting, I believe the world is shifting to a new paradigm. We're moving away from the old systems of oppression, and we're moving toward more parity, more community, more togetherness, more all the things that we love and want. We're moving toward that. I believe that, at least. And I'm around a lot of people who feel that way too. So with that in mind, that means that you do stumble onto those rotten things, right? The something old and rotten that we want to do away with. So what I wrote this week for the something old and rotten is, does this share it with you? Let me show it to you. Hang on. Okay, so the something old and rotten is the fear that speaking my truth is dangerous, but not just the fear, but also the nasty thing behind the fear, which is, of course, misogyny. We all know what that word means, right? The hatred of women. It's a word that came up in a roundabout way this week through an article about a related but much less familiar word, misandry. And I'm going to get into that word in a minute, but let me first just quickly show you. This is the article by Gina Luker. I'm an unapologetic misandrist, and I'm happily married to a man. So just a little teaser. I'm going to get into that in the something new and something borrowed section, because it kind of is both of those things, and I want to get into that. But first, let's go to the section So that was, oh, I forgot to show you my little graphic. I said, first we're getting into something old. So I already mentioned the something old and rotten, but I want to share now the something old and precious. It is still, and it's probably going to be, spoiler alert, it's going to be my journals, right? Like for many weeks or maybe months. I don't know how long. When it's something old, I'm probably going to share something from my old journals because that's what I'm digging into and that's what's sparking joy for me. So I thought I would share this. This journal came from 2007, and it's very full of lots of different things. But I had so at that time, I had two daughters. I still have two daughters, gratefully. Yes, and I did knock wood because I'm superstitious. So when I said that, I want to make sure that's the case. Anyway, 2007, I had Ahava, my oldest, was 2 years old, and my middle child, Ziva, was a few months old. She was born in early 2007. So this is a journal entry that I wrote back in the baby days. Samuel wasn't even a blip on the radar yet. He was born 4 years later. So here's a journal entry from May 28th, 2007, Monday, 10:30 p.m. It's funny because I keep a journal for each of my girls, and I just wrote a little something in each one about the picnic we had today. I say it's funny because when I write for them, I find I write sweet things and leave out a lot of the stress and frustration that a simple picnic with little girls can bring. After all, their journals are intended to bring a smile to their faces when they get older, and I don't want them to feel that I resent them or being a parent. That said, the fact is that this is a tough, tough job, even on a good day like today. Since Nathan is working overnight shifts, he didn't get home until around 9 a.m. And by the way, Nathan, my husband, was a mechanical engineer, and he became a doctor late in life. So he actually was going to medical school when I was pregnant with our first daughter, and then he was doing residency when we had a newborn, and then he had just started this new job. So he was gone a lot when the girls were really, really little. On days when Ahava doesn't have daycare, because it was Memorial Day, I try to really engage with her. She usually is in daycare 5 days a week for a total of 30 to 35 hours. So I figure that's when I need to get work done, Ziva permitting, of course. That way, I'm really with Ahava when I'm with her, like this weekend. I try to limit the amount of TV she can watch, and I do lots of activities with her. Everything from picnics to playing with her kitchen set, which was an amazing gift from my mom, or going pretend grocery shopping. Hopefully it all helps in her development in some way, but mostly it makes me feel that I'm doing the best I can. When I say Ahava's at daycare for 30 to 35 hours a week, that sounds like a lot. But the truth is, it still leaves me with very little time to get things done. Ziva may be great at sleeping through most of the night, but that's because she's awake and very demanding most of the day. That girl eats like it's going out of style. Yes, and I know Ziva's probably going to watch this, so it makes me laugh to tell her that, because one of the things is Ahava was like severely colicky when she was a baby, and she was our first. So when Ziva came along and she wasn't colicky, and also like Ahava was in NICU and had some trouble for the first 5 days of her life, Ziva was easy, like the pregnancy, the everything. And so she loves to rub it in her sister's face that she was the better baby. Well, my journal says otherwise. She was the better baby sometimes, as babies are. And don't even get me started on my overall lack of sleep, which is why I need to stop writing and get to sleep right now. So that made me smile. I mean, how can you not go back through your journals and okay, so I will say there's a lot of stuff that I go back through and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wrote that. But in this case, it does make me smile because this is about baby Ziva. Let me see if I can find, there's a few entries past that. Yes, and I need to go to the eye doctor because these glasses do not work anymore. I can't see with them. And these are broken. You can see they're all wonky. So just bear with me as I play with my glasses over and over. This journal also had I'm going into, at this time, I was just trying to figure out if I was going to start doing any kind of broadcasting again. I had left the mainstream media. I was the main anchor in Monterey, California when Ahava was born. I left that job. And then by the time Ziva came along, I was getting really antsy to do something career-wise again. Of course, I had a new baby and a 2-year-old, so I was crazy. But that is when I actually launched New Mexicast, which was my video podcast, where I did feature stories about interesting people and places in New Mexico and beyond. So I did that with 4-month-old baby Ziva in a Moby wrap on my chest. I'm sure I'll share that here on Marrying Myself at some point when I get to those journal entries or videos. But anyway, one of the things that made me smile, I was talking about, I was talking about trying to find a job or figure out if I wanted to work. I know it says, okay, I'll go back in here. Floating around in there is the notion that so many people say, do what you love and the money will come. And at the same time, I think of the advice that Jeff Arch, author of Sleepless in Seattle, once gave me at a screenwriting conference: write what you know. Well, what do I know? I know a lot about broadcasting, specifically reporting. But the big problem with reporting, especially at a station, is the lack of schedule flexibility. It is a big problem when you consider my main goal is to do something that doesn't detract from my job as a mommy, which that's why I ended up podcasting, because that worked well for me on my schedule. It's a job that can be maddening. Today was a good example of my frustration when Ziva wouldn't settle down long enough for me to get anything done. At one point, while I was nursing her for the 100th time, I decided to use my one free hand to search iTunes for something to listen to calm my nerves. Well, I happened upon a podcast by 2 women called something like Manic Mommies or something like that. In no time, it had me smiling, and it reminded me, like a slap on the head, that at one point I was really jazzed about the idea of doing a podcast of my own. So, and then I get into the fact that I did, right after that, launch New Mexicast. So, but the funniest, or the thing that makes me smile about that, is Manic Mommies it was a podcast with Erin Kane and Kristen Brandt, 2 women who they created a community of women who were going through the same phase of life and the challenges that it took to be a parent, and they shared it in their podcast. But they not only had the podcast, they also got Chevy to sponsor. They did annual escapes where the women, like total strangers who listened to their podcast, met in a city at a hotel, or in one case it was on a cruise, and they went to hang out, and Chevy hosted Mommy You, I think it was, or something like that. But they had like workshops, and it was just an amazing getaway. And I am still like best friends with some of the women from Manic Mommies to this day. And it makes me smile to think that's the benefit of going through your old stuff, right? Like, I really invite you. I know you have something in your garage, a box, a bin of something where you have some of your treasures that you haven't revisited in a long, long time, because, rightfully so, we've been focusing on, the nesting phase, taking care of our families and doing the things that help them feel like they have a solid foundation as they go into the world. But now, some people call it the crone years. I don't love that term, but like, as we move into really owning our next chapter and figuring out what we want, I really invite you to go through and see what you want, see what sparks joy for you still. Because like looking at that journal for me and seeing, first of all, baby Ziva and Ahava, this is what they looked like then, right? Look at them, they're so little babies. And also, this is the amazing coffee that my husband roasts for me. You should go back and look at one of my posts where I talk about, I don't think I've shared it on Substack, but anyway, all of this to say, he makes fresh roasted coffee using my popcorn popper. It's very funny. But those little girls are both off at college now, right? Taking over the world. So good. Okay, so that was something old and precious, and I am going to leave that section with inviting you to really think about what is old and precious to you, and really sit with it, savor it. Let that help inform. You know, I've seen people do this exercise where you think back to your childhood and you figure out what did you used to do when you were a kid that really sparked joy for you. Oh gosh, now I have to pull this out. That just reminded me. And this is the beautiful thing about this show for me and this project. I get to do whatever I want. So I see someone is here live, and if you are, drop a note in the comments and I'll see it in the studio, because otherwise I don't have any way to know who you are, but I'll write hello in the comments. Anyway, now that I just said that, it made me realize I did this exercise through, which I talked about this last week, but through this by Kyra Feisen Gardner, her Sanctuary Within, Designing a Life That Feels Like Home. It's part of her Women at the Edge of the Woods offering. So I've been working through that. And one of the exercises is really writing down some of the things that we have done that I did when I was younger, that still, that sparks joy. Let's see, she said it better than I did. Let me say, working through the Sanctuary Within. Oh, reflections on peak moments. And I mentioned I had done the movie premiere. I mentioned that in the last week. But one of the things that I just was thinking about is, Disney getting one of the 2 spots on the University of Florida's Disney College program, speaking on microphones at Kitchen Cabaret and Harvest Theater, communicating with people from around the world and spreading joy. So that's something I did that I loved. Here's a thing that I did. Here's a thing that I listed that I did when I was really young. And I don't even know, I guess I was probably in 5th grade, maybe. I did a Christmas play at my elementary school, and being brave enough to ask the principal for permission, writing a great play, recruiting my friends and siblings, and performing before the whole school auditorium, which of course came down to storytelling. That little memory really, it makes me think a lot, because one of the things I used to do is I used to perform plays. I was painfully shy. Like, I didn't speak to anyone. I was really, really, really shy. But I got the guts up and I went to the principal and I asked for permission to perform this play. It was a really big deal for me. And I look back at that because part of the process of this, like the whole idea of marrying myself, is not just like, oh, I love my old stuff. It's looking at, okay, what do I want to take with me into this next chapter, so that as I design my next part of life, I make sure those elements are present. And this exercise is perfect for that, because it always comes, I did several examples, but it comes down to storytelling and communicating, which I had figured out recently. Like, I got very clear that my core message is that I create safe gathering spaces for connecting, curating, creating, and communicating in community. And it is in that order. And the reason I say that is because that's what I'm doing right now for myself. Eventually, I'll take that same core message and apply it to other people and to a community. But right now, I'm creating this safe gathering space. This project, Marrying Myself, is my safe gathering space where I connect with myself. Then I curate all this stuff, all the things that I'm digging through. I'm curating what of that still sparks joy. What can I learn from it and take to the next chapter? I'm creating something out of that, this live stream and also the blog posts. And I'm communicating that here in community. So I am meeting my core message with this project. And so I really do love that you're here, and I appreciate it. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the next sections, and I'm doing them back to back because the something old, there's something old, something new, and something borrowed, and then I'll get into something blue. But the something new and something borrowed both come from the same thing. So let's see, what do we have here? So I'm going to play both of them back to back. So the something new and something borrowed both come from the same place, and they are related to this article by Gina Luker. Let me see if I can make it full screen so you can see it better. I am an unapologetic misandrist, and I'm happily married to a man. So I was like, I never heard that term in my life. I did not know what a misandrist was. And I read the article. I highly recommend you read it. It's a really good article talking about the word misandry, which, spoiler alert, it is the disdain for men, disliking men. Okay, so let's get into it. So I'm disappointed because I wanted to share, I'll show it to you, but I couldn't get it edited in time for this live stream. Here we go. Okay, so I use this really cool journal and this really cool pen. So this is the Moleskine journal and pen. And let's see if I can share my screen. I have where I was going to, and I'll try to put this in the replay. But let's see if I can share this. Make it bigger. Oh, I can't do that. Okay. Beauty of live streaming when things don't go the way you want them to go. But that's life. Hello, everyone, whoever is there. I see that there's people here. If you are here, drop a note in the comment section, and then I'll see that you're here in the studio. I appreciate that. I was trying to pull up a video. Let's see. Here. No, that didn't work. I'm having a tech day for sure. I knew it as soon as I woke up that was going to be the case, and that's okay. That's how we roll. But I'll show it to you in Canva at least. Present, share. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, never mind. I can't show it to you. But it's really cool because it takes what you write in your journal, and with this pen, it digitizes it and puts it into digital form. And then you can make like a video. Here, I think I could show you on here. This is the actual app, which is horrible, and I hate it so much. It just doesn't work. It takes forever and ever. So I'm not advertising the Moleskine app because it's just awful. But the pen and the thing are so cool. Let's see if you can see that. Can you see it? See how it like types it out for me? And you can export that. And on one of the previous episodes, I read from here and it plays across the screen. But it takes some doing, so I'm not going to, it failed today. We'll just call it a failure, and I'll read straight from here. So again, let's start this again. Okay, so getting clear on what I'm talking about. Here we go. Okay, so this is based on Gina Luker's article on Substack. I'm an unapologetic misandrist, and I'm happily married to a man. So that is what I wrote a journal about that. So without further ado, let's read that. May 27th, 2026, 6:25 a.m. I learned a new word last night and woke up thinking about it. Misandrist, from a Substack by Gina Luker called I Am an Unapologetic Misandrist, and I'm happily married to a man. I had to look up what the word meant, as I had never heard it before. It basically means someone who has strong negative feelings about men. Of course, I have heard the counterpart word a million times, misogynist, someone who hates women. I have an intimate understanding of that word, a visceral, lifelong understanding, really. That came from years and years of witnessing misogyny in action in tiny and huge, world-destroying ways. I feel strongly that misogyny is at the core of all the dysfunction of the systems we live in. It is what we are collectively dismantling and deliberately doing away with right now. There is not a person I know who hasn't been negatively impacted by misogynistic systems. It has defined our human interactions and relationships for millennia. It is the toxic weed that has choked the beauty out of everything it touches. So, if there is so much hatred of women, if I am so personally familiar with misogyny and all that the word represents, then why have I never heard this other word, the companion word, before? Misandrist, misandry. You would think that in a society with so much blatant misogyny, there would be more expressed misandry. Yet it is a word I don't even remember hearing before. Why? Part of me wants to say that it's because women aren't filled with hate the way men are in this society, but I know that isn't true. We all harbor plenty of hate, or at least we all have our shadow sides. No, it isn't because men are inherently more hateful than women, but because of the way society is structured and how that has affected us all over lifetimes. As I read Gina Luker's article, it resonated with me throughout. I felt the sickening fury in my core as she talked about rape culture, domestic violence, scanning parking lots, covering our drinks, calculating escape routes, women trying to stay safe. I understood all of it so deeply, and it made me angry. And side note, just yesterday, I was having dinner with my husband and daughter, who is visiting from college. And I noticed a guy at a table near me got up to go to the bathroom, and he put a coaster on his drink. And I said to my daughter, I said, we should invent something so that, because like, that's a really good idea, but he'd probably put it there. She said, oh, he probably put it there to keep flies out. And I thought, yeah, we as women think I'm going to cover my drink because I don't want somebody putting something in it, right? And I said, oh, we should invent something where they put a top on it, on a drink that locks so that nobody can mess with your drink if you step away. And she said, oh, there's a ton of inventions that are like that, which supports my point that the fact that we have inventions that are like that because of the fact that there are people who do bad things. So, side note, we talk about it regularly. This isn't just some hypothetical thing. Okay, so getting back to it. All right, so I understood all of it so deeply, and it made me angry. And now I'm asking myself, is that anger misandry? Good question. My first response is no, I do not hate men. Like Gina Luker, I am happily married to a man. I am also happily raising a son. I love them both fiercely. I love many other men too, my father, brothers, cousins, nephews, friends. But even as I wrote that last sentence, I'm very aware that there are men who fit into those categories who I mentally exclude from the men I love group. Men who I have familial ties with or who are part of our own social circles who will not be invited to the beautiful places we are creating. Men who have hurt women that I love. Men who have upheld the systems of oppression. Men who will never do their work. Do I hate them? I'm not sure. The part of me that is programmed to play nicely and to soften and to fix what they've broken wants to say no and rush to explain that I'm no misandrist. But then there's this other part. I'm actively working on a personal growth project I am calling Marrying Myself, this project. And the whole premise of it is to focus on myself and centering my own deep wisdom in the next chapter of my life. This seems like a very simple idea, but the more I try to embrace it and put it into action, the more I'm coming to believe this might be the most complex, difficult project I've ever attempted. Perhaps it's because I'm sharing the journey instead of keeping it as I normally do, hidden and private in journals that only are for my own eyes. Journals where it's safe for me to fully express my truth. Journals where there is no one waiting to offer up a criticism or counter argument. Journals which are blissfully free of mansplaining. Y'all know what that term means, right? Journals which have carried me through all the seasons of my life. Now, through marrying myself, I'm bringing these journals into the light, centering and sharing my own wisdom without apology. Well, not without the underlying feeling that I should apologize, apparently, as I feel that even as I write this, and even as I share this in here, I feel that I'm very aware of the fact that not everyone's going to love this, and that's something I work on. But without allowing the apology and the patriarchal programmed fear-based tendencies to take the driver's seat anymore. Instead, I'm now the driver, the pilot, and the captain, and I am determined to steer this vehicle toward the light and love-led community I have always envisioned. For me, that is a place that is free of both misogyny and misandry, but it is also a place that is free of misogynists. Notice I didn't mention the other category, misandrists, because without misogyny, I think that minuscule word that I had never heard before will simply cease to exist. Balance will be restored and we will all be better for it. This week, as I've been working on giving myself permission and loving pressure to launch the Marrying Myself project, I am glad I learned this new word. It made me think about what I am actually building, the core of which is safe gathering spaces where women come to share our gifts and center our own wisdom. We are changing the world now, and I'm so excited for my small part in it. And that is very, very true. And it's interesting. As I read it, I thought about the word. I struggled. I actually had to be coached in order to get the guts up to post this and to share this particular episode and the blog post associated with it, which you can go back and look at on my Substack, which is rosalindaroman.substack.com. Talking about such heavy issues, misandry, misogyny, is not my nature. I mean, as a reporter, it was. I would talk, I would do stories about all the terrible, heinous crimes that whatever I was assigned. But when it comes to my own work and my heart and what I want to share with the community, I'm much more hesitant to share anything like that. It's just something that I've noticed about myself. So I have an awesome coach that I rely on. It's a program, and I write about it with links in my post. But basically, let me see if I can pull it up because I would like to give them a little plug. Get it done. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I can find it from my post because I linked to it. Please stand by. We'll share this tab. And basically, Sarah Arnold Hall is my coach, like the overall coach for this Get It Done program. And my coach within that program is a woman named Nadia Monroe. And they're awesome. So if you're ever looking for coaching, and it's the most reasonable coaching I've ever had, you get weekly private coaching. Anyway, Sarah Arnold Hall, there she is. This is her program. In fact, it's saraharnoldhall.com. So you go to that, and I had week to week, I get coached 15-minute coaching, and I generally choose the same coach every week, and they follow you. They know what you're working on, and they talk about because a lot of the coaching that I've gotten done in the different programs, it's like a randomly assigned coach, and they don't know you from Adam or Eve, as it were. But in this program, from week to week, even if you have a different coach, they know what you're working on. They take notes and they pass it on to the next coach. There's another coach in that program named Anna, and she's awesome as well. All of this to say, when I thought about posting this post about misandry, I I really tensed up and I was dragging my feet. It's part of why I was struggling to get the posts written by Friday, because I would start to write. I'm a writer. I write very fast, very well, all of that. But when it came to that post, I was really dragging my feet and I was trying to figure out why. And I actually think I'll share what I came up with. So my coach, Nadia, we talked a lot about it, and it was basically fear of being labeled as one of those women. So it's one thing to share like happy pictures of my kids and things that are easy, but to share the things that are hard, that I'm not used to, and I'm still struggling with that, because when you step out into the public, and I knew this from my broadcasting days, where people would call and criticize, the color of my eyes. I don't know, just any random thing they didn't like. Trolls will be trolls. Trolls are going to troll. I learned to keep a lot of things close to the vest and not share. But this new era of marrying myself, I really only want to be honest and share. And, there are going to be people who won't get invited to the party, and that's okay. I love the block feature when people are nasty. But anyway, so Nadia helped me dig into like, what was it that was so hard for me? And it was trusting that I know what to write and that it's good enough. I've always struggled with that, like, imposter syndrome. But getting clear that I was really afraid of speaking out and having people hate me. I mean, I like people to like me. Everybody likes people to like them. But the thought of having someone, hate me. And this is kind of what I wrote after that realization. And I haven't screened it, so hopefully it's appropriate. I have been afraid that I would be shut out and banished and lose my platform, which I have sacrificed so much to secure for myself and others, that so many of my ancestors and beloveds have sacrificed so much to secure for us all, me and all the people my work, gifts, and skills can help and heal. I worried if I spoke truth to power, they would just push me back down and silence me and keep me small and locked away until all my power was gone. But I see now that fear was based on a fallacy, that they have the power to silence me, that they control the channels of communication, that we can't survive without them. That's the fallacy. That absolutely used to be true, and that hyper-awareness and over-caretaking and excessive caution when it comes to communicating absolutely kept us all alive in the past. But it is a new era now, and it is time to let go of those fears and to fully step out into the light with our deep wisdom and healing power fully intact and completely unapologetic. So that is what we are doing here on Marrying Myself. And it's not just me marrying myself. I hope you are thinking about marrying yourself, and what would that look like? It may not be journals. You may just, want to dig into the things that you bookmarked. Maybe it's something, videos that you took or photos, some way to or maybe it's meditation, something that you're reconnecting with yourself. And I'd love for you to put in the comments, how are you marrying yourself? How are you centering your own wisdom so that you move into the next chapter, bringing that with you? Okay, so the final category, so that wraps up the misandry, misandrist. I'd love to know if you've ever heard that term before. There's a comment here that I'm not going to share because it's someone personal, but says, I am not sure I love that term. And it's a person who's a man, so I understand that. I don't love that term either. I'd love for there to be no hate anywhere, but here we are. Okay, so moving on, we've got the something old put away and something borrowed and new, but the something blue is the last category, and that always makes me smile. So let's move to something blue. Okay, so the something blue is something that makes me smile for sure, and that is this blue glass pen. I have been collecting glass pens for a while. When I first was dating my husband 30 years ago, I went and worked at Walt Disney World, and we used to spend a lot of time at Disney. And there was a place called Hoi Polloi in downtown Disney, which sadly is now Disney Springs. Not a fan. But back when it was downtown Disney and there was Pleasure Island and the Adventurers Club, I know you all remember that. And in fact, our boat is named Kungaloosh after the Adventurers Club, because that's the greeting. And it's like the joyful greeting when you come into the Adventurers Club. I wonder if I could show you that really quickly, what the Adventurers Club is. Hang on, because I was just looking at a history of the Adventurers Club. Oh, that was my favorite. I was a Jungle Cruise skipper, and I'm preparing for the Jungle Cruise. Here it is. Okay, let's see if I can show this. Share this tab instead. This is the Adventure. Oh, it's going to go to an ad. Okay, well, I gave you a brief little look, and then it went to an ad. So we're going to just get out of that and come back to StreamYard. And, oh, I guess it didn't even show. So anyway, that was a failure. But trust me, Adventurer Club was wonderful. It's closed a long time ago. And downtown Disney was a really fun place. There was a place. We used to go to Bongo's. Remember Bongo's? That was Gloria Stefan's restaurant. I loved that. Cuban food, my favorite. Well, Puerto Rican food, Cuban food, both my favorites, equal favorites. Anyway, the Hoi Polloi was a place that my husband bought me a glass pen. It broke over the years. And so I've forever, and that was my favorite pen of all times. I love my fountain pens. I'm a penaholic. Anyone who knows me knows this. I love this as a Levenger fountain pen. This is what I mostly write with. Can you see it? There you go. That's a great pen. However, I loved that glass pen even more than that. So this is the glass pen that has temporarily replaced it. I've yet to find one that works as well as that one that broke. Of course, when you live on a boat like we have, glass pens don't always last. But this ink comes from Murano, Italy. And this, you see it draws up can you see that? It draws up the ink into the little crevices, the little channels in the glass. And then I'll write on here. Let's see if I can show you. Let's see. So can you see this? And then you write with a pen, with glass. Isn't that amazing? So that's a glass pen. As I was putting that so that's my something blue that I love this week. As I was going through and looking to talk about this, I was hoping to I still have that broken glass pen somewhere. I was trying to find the original from Hoi Polloi. I couldn't find it, sadly, but I have the same pen, this one, but it broke. So my sweetheart bought me a replacement, and I still can't bring myself to get rid of that, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe we could fix it sometime. Let's see. This one is the one from Murano, Italy. I don't love the way it writes, but it is also blue, which you'll see. And it's a really pretty, got a pretty tip. I don't know if you know, Murano is a place off of Venice, or maybe it's part of Venice, where it's a little island, and they blow glass. And so this is a glass pen hand-blown, handmade, which I don't know how they do all those little tiny, see the tiny little, can you see that? Look at that. So beautiful. It's a work of art, but I don't love the way it writes. And I think I have one more. Yeah, this one I got in New Orleans. Actually, how funny, when I was at the Manic Mommies retreat. This one is another one. I got it in the, somewhere in, I don't know, somewhere in New Orleans. There was some kind of like farmer's market. But look how cool that is. The problem is I don't love the way these write, because they put a ball right where your finger goes, and then it starts to hurt after a while. So that's not my favorite. So I have these beautiful glass pens. I should just give them away to someone who wants it, because I probably won't use them. They do bring back happy memories. But for now, my something blue is a glass pen. And I invite you to try glass pens. Go down to a stationery store and see if they have glass pens. They're really fun to write with. All right, I think that's enough for this episode of Marrying Myself, live version of my weekly project where I center my own wisdom first before all the input from everyone else. I'm Rosa Linda Román. I go by Rosa Linda. I do this every Monday. I post a post by close of business on Friday on my Substack at rosalindaroman.substack.com. And then I flesh it out here on a live stream the following Monday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. All right, that's it. Thanks for joining me. And before I go, let me really quickly see if there is. Oh, look at this. I love this. Here's a comment. I asked, how are you marrying yourself, right? What are you doing to kind of go back to the things that spark joy for you? And there's a comment in here that says, I started playing tennis again for myself after just teaching for 6 years and not playing. I rediscovered the love of tennis for myself. Does that count? 100% that counts. How amazing is that? That's what I'm talking about. What are you doing that maybe you did when you were a little kid? Like I was actually thinking when I told you about the plays, I'm like, my son was just in a play and it was so fun to watch him, and maybe I should be working on some plays. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not there yet, but you never know. All right. What are you doing to marry yourself? And thank you so much for watching. Put it in the comments and we can talk about it next week also. So until then, I'll see you later.